Very good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Ashwarya with you. All the big stories from India and across the world coming up in the next 30 minutes. First up, a look at the top headlines. India slams Pakistan at UN Human Rights Council. Asserts scrapping special status for Jammu and Kashmir is our sovereign right. Decision taken to ensure constitutional benefits for people. Exposes Islamabad's attempts to misuse United Nations to further the malicious political agenda. India tells China, Pakistan to stop CPEC activities in POK. Rejects reference to Jammu and Kashmir in latest China-Pakistan joint statement. MEA says India resolutely opposes actions by other nations to change status quo in POK. Retrieving POK not only BJP's commitment but part of Parliament resolution in 1994, says Union Minister Jitendra Singh. Adds the entire world is aligned with India over abrogation of Article 370. Prime Minister Modi to launch mega farmer welfare schemes from Mathura. Steps to include campaign to eradicate foot and mouth disease among farm animals by 2025. Prime Minister to also take part in Swachhtahi Seva Campaign to ban 6 types of plastic. And 10-day Kerala Harvest Festival Onam being celebrated across the country. President, Vice President and Prime Minister extend best wishes for happiness, prosperity and peace. Our top story this morning, India has issued a strong response to Pakistan over raising the Kashmir issue at the United Nations Human Rights Council. Vijay Thakur Singh, Secretary East in the External Affairs Ministry, said that Pakistan's charges are concocted and false. She asserted that India's steps on Kashmir are legal and within the constitution, calling it a sovereign decision and an internal matter for India. Without naming Pakistan, she said that the world is aware that the fabricated narrative comes from the epicenter of global terrorism, where ringleaders are sheltered for years. And this country conducts a cross-border terrorism as a form of diplomacy. She further added that there is a need to call out to those who are misusing the United Nations platform for malicious political agendas under the garb of human rights.
Mr. President, India holds the credentials of being the world's largest democracy. Our constitution guarantees fundamental rights to all our citizens without distinction. Our independent judiciary, free media, vibrant civil society provides an effective framework for protection of human rights. My government is taking affirmative actions by adopting progressive policies to promote socio-economic equality and justice. As a result of recent legislative measures, these progressive policies will now be fully applicable to our citizens in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. These will end gender discrimination, better protect juvenile rights, and make applicable rights to education, information and work. The decisions were taken by our Parliament after a fully televised debate and enjoys widespread support. These were sovereign decisions, entirely internal to India. No country can accept interference in its internal affairs, certainly not India. Despite challenging circumstances, Jammu and Kashmir civil administration is ensuring basic services, essential supplies, mobility and connectivity. Democratic processes have been initiated, restrictions are being eased continuously, temporary preventive measures were needed to ensure security in the face of credible threats of cross-border terrorism. The world, in particular India, has suffered greatly on account of state-sponsored terrorism. It is time to collectively take decisive and firm action against terror groups who threaten fundamental right to life. We must speak out. Silence alone emboldens terrorists and their supporters. Mr. President, One delegation here has given a running commentary with offensive rhetoric of false allegations and concocted charges against my country. The world is aware that this fabricated narrative comes from the epicenter of global terrorism, where ringleaders are sheltered for years. This country conducts cross-border terrorism as a form of alternate diplomacy. National Register for Civil Rights is a statutory, transparent, non-discriminatory legal process mandated and monitored by the Supreme Court of India. Its implementation will comply with Indian laws. As a responsible member of the international community, India firmly believes in a constructive approach to promote and protect human rights.
First Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, Vimarsh Arun, also sharply responded to Pakistan raising the Kashmir issue at the UNHRC. Reacting strongly to Pakistan Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's remarks on Kashmir, Aryan said that Pakistan was trying to polarize the forum. He added that Pakistan has pretended to speak as the voice of the global community on human rights at the UNHRC forum, but the persecution of minorities in Pakistan is well documented. Qureshi had demanded an international investigation by the UN Human Rights Council into the situation in Kashmir. And Arun also said that Article 370 was a temporary provision of the Indian Constitution. He added that the people of Kashmir are united to preserve the core values of democracy, and Islamabad has no locus standi to talk on Kashmir.
This is an ill-disguised effort to advance its territorial ambitions. We reject this propaganda. I wish to inform the Council that Article 370 was a temporary provision of the Indian Constitution. The recent modifications of Article 370 is within our sovereign right and entirely an internal matter of India. The decision removes impediments to the enjoyment of civil, political, social, economic and cultural rights of our citizens in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, especially those dealing with women, children and disadvantaged sections of our society in that region. Mr. President, we are not surprised at the Pakistan's hysterical statements with false, fabricated narratives aimed to politicize and polarize this forum. Pakistan realizes that our recent decision cuts the very ground from under its feet by creating obstacles in its continuing sponsorship of cross-border terrorism against India. In this desperate mind frame, some Pakistan leaders have even gone as far as to call for jihad and to encourage violence both inside Jammu and Kashmir and in third countries in order to paint a picture of genocide which even they know is far from reality. Pakistan has today pretended to speak as a voice of global community on human rights, but the world cannot be fooled. Pakistan's gory record speaks for itself. This rhetoric will not distract international attention from Pakistan's persecution and elimination of religious and ethnic minorities, be it Christians, Sikhs, Shias, Ahmadiyas and Hindus. This is the reason that Pakistan no longer publishes official statistics about its minorities as India does. Blatant abuse of blasphemy laws in Pakistan to persecute minorities is well documented.
And speaking to the media soon after his address, Pak Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi described Jammu and Kashmir as an Indian state. Remember, Pakistan has always referred to Kashmir as an Indian-administered state. And India maintains that J&K is an integral part of our country since it legally acceded to the Union of India in 1947.
To go into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir and see for themselves what the reality is. Into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, to go into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir and see for themselves.
Meanwhile, India has once again called for next-generation reforms in the United Nations Security Council. Speaking at a Security Council debate in the United Nations, India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Syed Akbaruddin, said that peacekeeping currently is a no-man's land, and he called for reforms in peacekeeping based on innovation and institutionalization.
Institutionalization of an approach where all key actors, especially troop-contributing countries, are associated in a consistent and predictable manner in the decision-making matrix has been now discussed for decades. Second, further incentivizing women peacekeepers is now essential. In 1993, during the first spurt of peacekeeping, women made 1% of those deployed as uniformed personnel. Today, it is 6%. In 26 years, we have increased the share of women by 5%. At this rate, it may not be possible to meet even minimum targets. Third, innovation in capacity building of peacekeepers needs to be a priority.
And our Foreign Affairs editor, Akhilesh Suman, is now joining us on the phone line. A very good morning, Akhilesh. So India rejecting Pakistan's demand for a probe, UNHRC probe on Kashmir, and saying that Islamabad has no locus standi. And interestingly, in what can be actually regarded as a masterstroke, India, fielded a diplomat also from Jammu and Kashmir to rebut Pakistan's charges of alleged human rights violation. And India also calling for reforms in the United Nations.
You are right, Aishwarya. Actually, this is the time when India's portrayal of Pakistan is at the top. That India for last, you can say that 10 years or so, it was a...
All right, Akhilesh, we are not able to get your voice clearly. We'll try to connect back to you in the subsequent bulletins. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, the Ministry of External Affairs on Tuesday rejected the reference to Jammu and Kashmir in the joint statement issued by Pakistan and China. India has also called on both the countries to stop the activities related to China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is in India's territory that has been illegally occupied by Pakistan since 1947. MEA spokesperson Ravish Kumar also underscored that Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India and rejected the reference to Jammu and Kashmir issued after the recent visit of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi to Islamabad. Meanwhile, Union Minister Jitendra Singh has said that the biggest achievement in the first 100 days of the Modi government's second term was the abrogation of Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir. Recounting the achievements of the Modi government's second term in its first 100 days, Jitendra Singh said that government's next agenda is making Pakistan-occupied Kashmir an integral part of India. He said that the integration of Kashmir is not just his party's resolve, but a resolve of the unanimous resolution that was passed by Parliament in 1994 by the then Congress government headed by P.V. Narasimha Rao. And responding to a question on the vicious campaign launched by Pakistan over Kashmir issue, he said that the world view is aligned with India.
Now the next agenda is retrieving Pak-occupied Jammu Kashmir and making it a part of India. और ये सिर्फ मैं नहीं कह रहा, या मेरा संगठन नहीं कह रहा, ये राजनीतिक दल नहीं कह रहा. This is a part of a unanimously passed resolution of the Parliament in 1994 by the Congress government headed by Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. अब ये और बात है कि कांग्रेस वाले खुद ही नरसिम्हा राव जी का नाम लेने में थोड़ा परहेज करते हैं. But this is an accepted position. और जहाँ तक प्रक्रिया कब प्रारंभ हुई, उससे ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है कि ये मंजिल-ए-मखसूस तक पहुँची.
And on to some other news now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will launch the National Animal Disease Control Program for eradicating the foot and mouth disease and brucellosis in livestock from Mathura in Uttar Pradesh. The objective of the program is to control foot and mouth disease and brucellosis by 2025 and their eradication by 2030. The program aims at vaccinating over 500 million livestock, including cattle, buffalo, sheep, goats and pigs. It also aims to vaccinate 36 million female bovine calves annually against the brucellosis disease. The program will be implemented for a period of 5 years till 2024 and will cost 12,652 crore rupees. The Prime Minister will also launch National Artificial Insemination Program during the event. He will also launch a country-wide workshops in Krishi Vigyan Kendras in all the 687 districts of the country on the topic of vaccination and diseases management, artificial insemination and productivity. And during his visit to Mathura, the Prime Minister will also take part in the Swachhtahi Seva program. Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with his counterpart from St. Vincent and Grenadines in New Delhi on Tuesday. During his meeting with the Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, both leaders agreed to enhance cooperation between the two countries, including in the areas of skill development, training, education, finance, culture, and disaster management. Prime Minister Gonsalves noted the enormous goodwill for India in St. Vincent and also in the Caribbean and Latin American region. This is the first ever visit by a Prime Minister from St. Vincent to India. On to some other news, President Ramnath Kovind on Tuesday thanked the Iceland government for understanding India's core concerns as he held the talks with the country's president on strengthening bilateral political ties and economic partnership. In a press statement after holding talks with Iceland President, Kovind said that the two sides took stock of their global partnership and discussed ways to add fresh momentum to it. Iceland also declared exemption from visa for Indian diplomatic and official passport holders.
I had extensive discussion with President Johannesson on all aspects of our relationship. We both conveyed our mutual commitment to further strengthen our political ties, economic partnership, and cultural understanding between the two countries. We also took stock of our global partnership and discussed ways to add fresh momentum to it. Iceland-India relations are warm and friendly. Our shared values of democracy, freedom, the rule of law, and respect for human rights bring our countries together. I reiterated India's gratitude for the long-standing support that Iceland has expressed for India's candidature for permanent membership of the UN Security Council.
And earlier, India and Iceland signed several agreements to enhance cooperation in the field of sustained fisheries development and organize a cultural exchange program between 2019 and 2022. President Kovind also invited Iceland President Johannesson to India. He also invited Iceland to be part of the International Solar Alliance led by India to promote solar energy worldwide.
A memorandum of understanding was signed between the Department of Fisheries, the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying Government of the Republic of India, and the Ministry of Industries and Innovation of Iceland, Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture on cooperation in the field of sustainable fisheries development. The oceans may separate us, but they unite us as well. We like to believe here in Iceland that we have much to offer when it comes to sustainable fisheries. We look forward to developing our cooperation in this field yet further.
Later in the day, the President gave a lecture on the topic India-Iceland for a Greener Planet in the University of Iceland. And listing out the initiatives taken by India to mitigate climate change, the President informed that India's greenhouse gas emission intensity of its GDP will be reduced by 33 to 35% below 2005 levels by 2030. He added that the country has set a target of installing 175 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2022 and turn towards the utilization of geothermal energy.
India is now the world's fastest growing major economy, and we require a huge expansion of our energy production. But we are doing it in a sustainable manner. In our ever-growing commitment to renewable energy, we will be turning towards utilization of geothermal energy also. We look forward to working with Iceland in this regard. In our ever-growing commitment to renewable energy, we will be turning towards utilization of geothermal energy also. We look forward to working with Iceland in this regard. India has pledged to eliminate single-use plastic by 2022. We have an ambitious target to put 6 to 7 million hybrid and electric vehicles on the road by 2020.
A prayer meeting for late Arun Jaitely was held at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in Delhi on Tuesday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi joined many other prominent leaders, including Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, in paying rich tributes to the departed leader. Various opposition leaders also remembered Arun Jaitly with many personal accounts of their association with him. An emotional Prime Minister said that he will always regret not being in the country to pay his last respects to his dear friend. The Prime Minister was, remember, abroad on an official program when the 66-year-old former Finance Minister passed away in Delhi on 24th of August.
इतने लंबे कालखंड तक घनिष्ठ मित्रता और उसके अंतिम दर्शन मैं नहीं कर पाया। मेरे मन पर इसका बोझ हमेशा बना रहेगा। वे सर्वमित्र थे, वे सर्वप्रिय थे और वे अपनी प्रतिभा के कारण, अपने पुरुषार्थ के कारण, अपने प्रभाव के कारण जिसको भी जहां पर भी उपयोगी हो सकते थे, वे हमेशा उपयोगी होते थे।
We have lost a good man in public life. We have lost a decent human being. We have lost a respected and able professional, a witty thinker, a lifelong student of politics, a remarkable communicator, a committed pillar of his party, and a friend to many, many people.
And ASEAN on Tuesday agreed to India's long-pending demand to review the India-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement. Now, this was agreed upon during the meeting between the economic ministers of ASEAN and Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal in Bangkok on Tuesday during the 16th AEM India consultations. The two sides also decided to constitute a joint committee for this purpose. Swachhtahi Seva Campaign, with a special focus on making India a plastic-free country, will commence from today. Now, this year, all the government departments and organizations under them will launch a countrywide mega campaign towards completely cutting down the use of single-use plastic. 10,000 tons will be disposed of, and a significant amount of this plastic waste will also be recycled and reused. It is gathered that some of the plastic collected will be put to use through various technologies for road construction, as well as for creating a cement mix which can be used for overall construction work. Each ministry will launch a series of initiatives to generate awareness towards discontinuing the use of all single-use plastic. Let's get to some sports news now. Gritty India survived a series of attacks from Qatar to hold the reigning Asian champions to a goalless draw to steal an unexpected point from their away match of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers in Doha on Tuesday. Gurpreet Singh Sandhu played the match of his life as India held Asian champions Qatar to a goalless draw to earn their first point in a Group E second round. India will next take on Bangladesh on 15th of October in the Group E clash of the World Cup 2022 qualifiers. And finally, Kerala is celebrating Harvest Festival Onam today. The 10-day festival that began on 1st of September this year marks the homecoming of mythical demon king Mahabali. Traditional grand feast called Onam Sadhya that consists of a variety of local dishes served on banana leaves is a major highlight of this festival. President Ramnath Kovind extended his greetings and good wishes to all citizens, especially those of Kerala in India and abroad. And Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu said that Onam is celebrated to honor the memory of the legendary king of Kerala, Mahabali, whose reign is believed to have brought peace and prosperity to the kingdom. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also greeted the people on the occasion of Onam, hoping that the festival will further the spirit of happiness, well-being and prosperity in our society. And with that, we wrap up this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks for watching. Have a great day ahead.